Hello everyone and welcome to the list review show for Contest of Fools, PMTT's first two-day event. It's going to be held on April 1st and 2nd up here in Toowoomba, and we are absolutely psyched that it is going to be happening. So we're so pumped that it is so close. We're just putting the final touches on the event. But what we have now is last Sunday we had all the lists come in. Most of them came in on time, only a couple of stragglers. We've still got one ticket available at time of recording, so it might still be available when you're watching this. Check it out on our website. Otherwise, sit back, relax, listen to some of the stats, and listen to us go through the list. We've got a special surprise later on, but let's get to it. So first up, we've got the overall breakdowns for the Grand Alliances. You can see there that both Chaos and Order each account for about 30% of the field, with Destruction taking up about 23% and Death just a measly 12% left. Overall, when you go through the kind of list and you see the armies that are prevalent, you can see that there is quite a lot of contenders. No one army or no one allegiance is kind of just taking the entire meta, which is a fantastic place for the hobby to be. And it's awesome that there's such diversity, especially in the local area. It means that it's unlikely that someone's just going to get 5 games against one army and be a fairly lackluster weekend. If we go down to the allegiance breakdown, you can see there that for Chaos, Disciples of Zinch, Maggot King, Skaven, and Slaves make up the majority of the field there. But none of them are really over 20%, which is fantastic to see. You can see that there is good balance within the Grand Alliance itself. Same can't be said about Death, with Soulblight Gravelwoods taking up 50% of the field there. And strangely enough, Nighthorn coming back with a massive showing there, and then we've got the lone Flesh Eater Courts player as well. For Destruction, Gits being the new hotness were always going to be a big thing at this event. And then Iron Jaws and Ogres, both with strong showings. Personally, I think that's due to their power in the current GHB. Big tanky foot characters is exactly what you want for this season. And then coming to Order, you can see that there is a little bit more diversity. Stormcast is always going to be big. It's always going to be there. But then Fire Slayers, once again, I reckon this season has really contributed to their popularity at the moment. With just bulk foot heroes. And then, of course, you've got the new KO. They're only just allowed out. Everyone's this is going to be the first big event they're going to be allowed in. And so we've got 4 people there that basically jumped at the opportunity to bring them. And all very different lists, which is really exciting to see. And then you've got Sylvaneth kind of rounding out the big ones, and then Lumineth and Daughters with a small showing as well. If we break down the overall grand strategies as well, this gets really interesting if you start looking at the smaller ones. But looking at the big ones, take what's theirs and defend what's ours. They account for the majority of the lists. Combining with this, the day is ours, and then Vampiric Conquerors, which is interesting, being this Soulblight Gravelords specific one. Between those 4, they make up 50% of the field, which is a huge showing. There's probably a little bit more balance that G-Dub could be putting inside the Grand Strats, but that could also be dependent on the scenarios that we've chosen, the battle plans, the lists, the seasons, so many things add into that. So it's always interesting to see kind of the overall breakdown there as well. And then finally, we've got the number of drops. So you can see there that majority of the drops are 10 to 12. With 12 being 15%, 10 being 12%, and 11 being another 11% as well. So combined, that takes it up to almost 40% of the drops. And then you drastically drop down with 4 drops being the next most popular one. There are a few 1 drops, with the biggest drop being 14 as well. So looking at this is telling me that if you're running a 4-5 drop list, odds are you're going first against the majority of drops, but it all depends on the battalions you're taking, and there has been a massive variety of battalions, too much in fact to be able to actually come up with any meaningful data from it. But let's get straight into the list, because I know that's what everyone is really here to see. And joining me tonight, unfortunately I couldn't get another human to help me, so I have embraced technology and I am being assisted tonight by AI. So let's get into it.
Blade Hook. This list has a good mix of ranged firepower and melee units, with a heavy emphasis on scryer units. The Arch Warlock as a general, with deranged Inventor and the Brass Orb, is a good choice, providing some additional command abilities and artifacts for the army. The Vermin Lord Warpseer is a powerful wizard and can provide some good support to the scryer units. The Storm Fiends and the Clan Rats are solid choices for battle elan units, providing some good melee damage potential. The Scryer Acolytes are a good choice for ranged damage and can benefit from the Galician Sharpshooters Battalion. The Warlock Bombardier is a good support unit for the army, providing some additional ranged damage potential with Chain Warp Lightning. The Warplock Jezzails are a great addition to the army, providing some good ranged firepower. Overall, the army has a good mix of ranged and melee units, with a focus on scryer units. I would rate this list 8 out of 10. It has a strong focus on scryer units and a good mix of ranged and melee units. However, it may struggle against armies with a lot of fast-moving units or those that can close the gap quickly.
So Blake's list is really interesting. He's really lent into the scryer aspects of Skaven. He's got a lot of clan rats, a lot of storm fiends, decent couple of characters. It's going to be a really interesting list, and I'm excited to see how it goes on the table.
Bob Hook. This list is focused on the Pestilence subfaction of Skaven and has a good mix of melee and ranged units. The Plague Priests are great support heroes with their noxious prayers, and having 3 of them provides a lot of flexibility in what prayers can be used each turn. The Plague Priest on Plague Furnace is a good centerpiece unit and can be very durable with the heal prayer. The Warlock Engineer provides additional support for the army with more warp power. The battle elan units consist of 10 Plague Censer Bearers and 60 Plague Monks, with each unit having a reinforced option to increase their durability. The Storm Fiends provide some additional firepower and durability, and the Plague Claws and Warplock Jezzails provide some long-range damage potential. Overall, this list has a good mix of melee and ranged units and can be very durable with the reinforced options on the battle elan units. The list has good synergy with the Pestilence subfaction and should be effective against a variety of opponents. I would rate this list 8.5 out of 10. However, it may struggle against armies with a lot of fast-moving units or those that can close the gap quickly.
Yeah, once again, you're seeing Skaven maybe struggling with mobility. We're not sure how well the AI understands the teleporting and the flexibility that the Norholes give them, but that is definitely something that Skaven do struggle with, so it's something that those players will need to watch out for.
Cameron McCormick. This Age of Sigmar list seems to be focused on the Khorne faction and includes a good mix of leaders, battle elan units, and other units. Some strengths of this list are the presence of powerful leaders such as the Bloodthirster of Unfettered Fury and Scarbrand, who can deal significant damage to enemy units. The Bloodsecrator and Slaughterpriest also provide important buffs to nearby units. The list also includes a good mix of battle elan units, including Blood Warriors and Blood Reavers, which are tough and can deal decent damage in close combat. The addition of Skullreapers and Wrathmongers also provides some versatility and extra punch. In terms of weaknesses, this list may struggle against armies with strong ranged units or high mobility, as it doesn't include many units with ranged attacks or fast movement. Overall, I would rate this list as a solid 8 out of 10, as it includes a good mix of units and powerful leaders, but may struggle against certain types of armies.
Yeah, 100% agree with that. The best way to deal with Khorne is from an arm's distance, and that's probably what people are going to have to do. If you get up in Cameron's face, he is going to punch back and he's going to hit like a truck.
Cameron Taylor. This is a unique and interesting list with a mix of powerful and versatile units. However, it is lacking in some areas and could potentially struggle against certain opponents. The inclusion of Bileka as a leader is a great choice, as he provides a lot of utility and can be very effective in combat. The Chaos Sorcerer Lord is also a good addition with the Arcane Tome and the Law of the Damned. Eternus, Blade of the First Prince, and the Ogroid Myrmidon are both strong units and could potentially deal a lot of damage. The Chaos Warriors with the Nurgle Mark and the Ensorcelled Banner are a solid battle elan unit, but the 6 Furies might struggle to make an impact on the battlefield. The 9 Ogroid the Rydens are a significant investment, but could be very powerful if used correctly. The 2 units of Chaos Legionnaires are a bit of an odd choice, and might struggle to make an impact in the game. The inclusion of the Chaos Warband Slayers Battalion is a nice touch, and provides some additional benefits. Overall, this list has some strong units and potential, but it could benefit from some additional support and more optimist choices for certain units. I would rate it a 7 out of 10.
Yeah, I'm very interested to see how this list performs on the table. Slaves are absolutely stomping face at the moment. And looking at that list, Cam has definitely taken some of the more powerful options. Those 9 Ogre or the Therodons are absolutely going to slap if they hit anything. So it's going to be really interesting to see how this list plays on the table.
Carwyn Llewellyn. This is a strong Age of Sigmar list with a lot of powerful units and good synergies. The Chaos Lord on Karkadrak and the Chaos Sorcerer Lord provide strong leadership and support abilities, while the Chaos Knights, Verangard, and Untamed Beasts make for a formidable front line. The inclusion of the Blizzbarbed Archers as allies adds some ranged firepower to the list as well. The list has a strong focus on the Nurgle Mark, which provides some nice bonuses to the units that have it. The use of the ensorcelled banner and demon fidget blades also helps to make the Nurgle units even more deadly. Overall, I would rate this list as very strong, with a lot of potential for success on the battlefield. It seems well thought out and has a good mix of units and abilities. The only potential weakness I see is the relatively low number of drops, which could make it difficult to control objectives in certain scenarios. However, with the strong offensive capabilities of the list, it may not matter as much.
Yeah, once again, Carwin has gone for a very punchy list. Those Varangard will hit hard. The Karkadrax also will absolutely punch. And being a 2-drop, he's very much going to be controlling the game from the get-go. So, very keen to see what he can do with this.
Chase Price. This is a solid Age of Sigmar list with a good mix of leaders and units. The use of 2 Chaos Sorcerer Lords with different spell laws adds versatility to the army. The inclusion of the Exalted Heroes of Chaos provides additional support and utility. The 10 Chaos Knights with the Ensorcelled Banner and Reinforcement are a strong and durable Battleelan unit. The 10 Chaos Warriors and 9 Corvus Cabal are also good options for Battleelan units. The addition of the Endless Spells and Invocations provides additional control and damage output, and the Purple Son of Shyish and Ravenak's Gnashing Jaws are solid choices. The use of the core battalions and additional enhancements are well thought out, and the list has no allies, making it a pure Chaos army. Overall, I would rate this Age of Sigmar list as a strong 8 out of 10.
Yeah, I've played against a very similar list, and having that mix of warriors, knights, and chosen in there are ridiculously powerful. So, interestingly enough, Chase has gone with an additional spell for both his sorcerers. So I'm very keen to see how that plays out on the table.
Chris Clark. This list seems well balanced and competitive. It has a good mix of ranged and melee units, with some powerful characters to lead them. The Gaunt Summoner and Curseling offers strong magic support, while the Ogroid Thaumaturge provides some extra combat ability. The Pink Horrors and Carrick Acolytes are solid Battleelan choices, offering both ranged and melee options. The Chaos Chosen are a durable unit that can hold objectives and deal decent damage, especially with their reinforced option. The Varangard are an excellent elite unit, providing heavy hitting power and good mobility. The Demonic Simulacrum and Ravenak's Gnashing Jaws are both useful endless spells that can disrupt enemy lines. The only potential weakness of this list is its low number of wounds, which could make it vulnerable to alpha strikes. Overall, I would rate this list as a strong 8 out of 10.
Yeah, definitely agree with the AI there. One of the best ways to deal with Zinch is to hit them hard, hit them fast. But if you're charging into Chris's list, you're charging into 10 Chosen, you're charging into those Pinks, and those Varangard want to be in combat from the get-go. So that might not actually be the best play.
Chris Eddy. This is a well-constructed Age of Sigmar list that appears to be optimist for Tzeentch-based gameplay. Kairos Fatuiava is a strong leader choice, and the supporting characters, such as the Changecaster and Magister, provide good synergy and spellcasting options. The Flamers of Tzeentch are excellent offensive units, and having 2 groups of 6 is a solid choice. The Carrick Acolytes are decent Battleelan units, and provide some additional spellcasting options. The inclusion of the Burning Sigil of Tzeentch and Umbral Spell Portal provide additional spellcasting and control options. Overall, I would rate this list as strong and competitive.
Yep, Crody has really lent into the Flamer build there, and they're going to throw out a ridiculous amount of damage. So combine that with Kairos and the Changecaster, there's going to be spells going everywhere, there's going to be fire being thrown everywhere, and you're not going to know what's happening.
David Maidment. This Nurgle list seems pretty strong. The Glockin is a powerful centerpiece, and Horticulus Slimix can be used to summon additional units of Nurgle trees throughout the game. Sloppity Balpipper adds some useful support with his ability to heal Nurgle units, and the Beasts of Nurgle are tough, resilient units that can tie up enemy units in combat. The Plague Werebearers and Rotmire Creed provide some solid Battleelan options, while the Nurglings offer some mobility and board control. The Horrorghast is a great endless spell that can deal mortal wounds and slow down enemy units. The list has a decent number of drops and a good amount of wounds. Overall, I would rate this list as 8 out of 10.
Yep, the Glockin, fantastic piece, especially when supported by Horticulus, the Bilepiper in there as well, and then the rest of the Plague Bearers and Beasts of Nurgle just going to lock you down and just going to start that grind and grind for the entire game. So it's going to be a fantastic event for David to come to. Can't wait to see what he pulls out with this new list.
Gareth Ferraratilli. The Curseling and Magister provide good support with their spells, and the Great Grey Shaman brings some solid melee capabilities. Overall, a good selection of leaders. 8 out of 10 Battleelan, the 2 units of Pink Horrors provide good ranged attacks and can be split into smaller units for more flexibility. The Carrick Acolytes are a decent melee unit. 7 out of 10 units, the Sarngor Enlightened on discs are fast and deadly, and the Kronspine Incarnate is a powerful behemoth. A good mix of units that can provide some solid melee and ranged capabilities. 8 out of 10 endless spells and invocations, the Burning Sigil of Tzeentch and Umbral Spell Portal are useful for adding some extra magic support. 7 out of 10. The Allies selection with the Kron Spine Incarnate is good. 8 out of 10 overall. I would rate this Age of Sigmar list a 8 out of 10. It has a good mix of units, and the leaders and endless spells provide some solid support.
Yep, throwing a Cron Spine into a Zinch list is always a fantastic idea. It brings some of the biggest things that Zinch is lacking. And you can see there Gareth's looking to lock people down with the Cron Spine, play around them with the Zangor Enlightened, and then just be locking him down with the Pink Horrors again. Just really grind it out and really just play his game, force them to come to him.
Geordie Flepped. This looks like a well-rounded Beasts of Chaos list with a good mix of units and heroes. The use of the Galician Veterans Battalion is a smart choice, as it provides some much-needed bonuses to the weaker Ungers and Gors. The inclusion of a Doom Bull and a Sarngor Shaman as leaders gives some good command abilities and spellcasting potential. The only concern might be the lack of ranged units, but the Sarngor Enlightened on discs and the Bulgors can make up for it with their mobility. The Cockatrice and Chaos Gargant are also solid choices for Behemoths. Overall, I would rate this list as a strong 8 out of 10.
Yep, Geordie is a fantastic player. Recently took out CanCon, so still probably riding that high a bit. I'm very keen to see what he can do with this new list and how he plays in the new season.
James Lynch. This list appears to be a Nurgle army, focused on the Nurgle keyword and the synergy between its units. The Great Unclean One, Lord of Blights, Horticulus Slimux, and Lord of Afflictions provide strong leadership and abilities to bolster the army. The Beasts of Nurgle and Plague Bearers make up the battalion, and their resilience and durability make them difficult to remove from the battlefield. Overall, this list seems well constructed and effective in battle. It has a good mix of melee and ranged capabilities and a solid defense. The addition of the Arcane Tome artifact adds extra utility and versatility to the army. I would rate this list as 8 out of 10.
Yep, James is another fantastic player, amazing painter, and just an all-round great guy. I'm very keen to see what he can do with all the single beasts of Nurgle. It can be a really powerful list, but very much punishes you if you make a mistake. So we'll see if James can play well and then take it out.
Jason Spedding. This list looks very strong and well balanced. The use of multiple battalions and reinforced units shows a good understanding of army composition and strategy. The combination of ranged attacks from the Blizzbarbed archers and the melee power of the Mermaid Painbringers and Ogroid Thaumaturges provides good flexibility on the battlefield. The inclusion of 2 Cockatrices as allies can add extra utility and disruption. The leadership bonuses from the Chaos Sorcerer Lord and Vice Ladder Herald of Slanesh are also helpful. Overall, I would rate this list as a solid 9 out of 10.
Yeah, very cool list. It's got Sigvald in it, so he's definitely got that melee punch. And backed up with the Ogroid Theridans and the Mermadesh Painbringers, he's definitely going to have a lot of options. And then all the archers are going to be just popping out shots everywhere. Combine that with a couple of Cockatrices floating around, and you've got a really, really solid list.
Jadon Hargreaves. This is a very solid Nurgle-themed list, with a good mix of heroes, battalion units, and elite choices. The Glotkin is an incredibly powerful centerpiece, and the Lord of Afflictions and Rotbringer Sorcerer provide strong support. The Puskoil Blightlords are excellent elite units, and the 10 Rotmire Creed and 3 Nurglings provide some additional bodies and board control. Overall, I would rate this list as very strong. The Glotkin and Puskoil Blightlords are both very powerful units, and the support heroes provide some great utility. The list could potentially struggle with objective-based scenarios, as it doesn't have a lot of mobility and only has 3 units that can hold objectives, but it makes up for this with its durability and ability to dish out a lot of damage. I would give this list 8.5 out of 10.
Yeah, very interested to see how Jaden plays this. He's gone kind of all in on the Puskoil Blightlords there. Doesn't have many bodies, but each one of those bodies is ridiculously tanky. So very keen to see how he plays this on the table.
Jonathan Williams. This list appears to be fairly strong and well-rounded. The inclusion of August Damaspew and the Lord of Blights as the General and Warlord respectively provides strong leadership and buffs to the army. The Plague Bearers and Putrid Blight Kings make for tough and durable battalion units, while the Rotmire Creed and Lord of Plagues provide additional support and damage output. The Soul Scream Bridge is also a useful addition for mobility. The inclusion of Belaka as an ally provides some additional spellcasting and melee prowess, and the use of the Galician Veterans Battalion for the Putrid Blight Kings further enhances their effectiveness. Overall, I would rate this list as a strong 8 out of 10.
Yeah, once again, Jono's gone hard in for the characters, and I think it will pay off. It's a very strong list. He's got a lot of tankiness. He's got a bit more mobility with the Soul Scream Bridge. Bellacor's relatively fast as well. And yeah, I'm very keen to see where he ends up with that new list.
Christopher Chase. This is a solid list with a good mix of units and leaders. The Doom Bull is a strong choice for a general, and the Great Bray Shamans provide useful magical support. The Gors and Bulgors offer a strong front line, while the Ungas and Unga Raiders can provide ranged support and harass the enemy. The Sargor enlightened on discs of Tzeentch and cockatrices add some much needed mobility and ranged damage. The Command Entourage Battalion is a good choice, and the reinforced units and artifact are nice additions. Overall, I would rate this list 8 out of 10.
Yeah, Beasts of Chaos are quite strong. Having the Doom Bull backed up with the Shamans and then a big unit of Bulgors is always a good thing, but then throwing in the 6 Xenia Enlightened on disc means he's got a nice fast hard hitting unit as well. So he's going to really be able to play around and get where he needs to be.
Scott Moss. This Age of Sigmar list seems to be a Skaven army with a focus on Vermin Lords and Gutter Runners. The Vermin Lord Deceiver, as the general, with the Devious Adversary command tray and the Shadow Magnet Trinket artifact, can be very effective at disrupting enemy units and providing mobility to the army. The Warp-Nor Vermin Lord can also be a strong pick, especially with the Flaming Weapon spell. The inclusion of 2 Warp Lightning Cannons can provide long-range damage to the army, while the Deathmaster with the Norbalm artifact can also cause significant damage to enemy units. The use of Gutter Runners as Battalion units can be a good choice, especially if you use them to harass the enemy's flanks or rear. The Storm Vermin can be a solid core unit for holding objectives or providing support for other units. Overall, this list seems to have a good mix of units and abilities that can make it competitive. However, it's worth noting that Skaven armies can be difficult to play due to their low bravery and reliance on random chance for certain abilities.
Yeah. I think, like, looking at this list, it's a powerful list, and all Scott needs is a little bit of luck. He doesn't want those cannons to blow up. He needs some of his spells to go off, but if he can pull that off, he is going to be basically unstoppable.
Scott Wyatt. This Age of Sigmar list seems very solid. The inclusion of Kairos Fatuyava, the Magister, and the Ogroid Thaumaturge provide a strong magic phase. The Kairos Fatuyava's command ability allows for rerolling of failed casting and unbinding rolls, making him a powerful force on the battlefield. The Pink Horrors of Tzeentch and Kerrig Acolytes provide a solid battalion, and the Kronspine Incarnate of Ger adds a hard-hitting behemoth to the army. The inclusion of Chronomantic Cogs and Burning Sigil of Tzeentch give the army additional utility in the magic phase. Overall, I would rate this list highly, perhaps an 8 or 9 out of 10.
Yeah, not only is the list being rated as an 8 or 9 out of 10, is being piloted by Scott, who is an absolutely excellent player, and he's definitely going to be playing this to the absolute limit. Kronspine in there once again to really benefit and cover up Tzeentch's weaknesses, and then he's got the full casting behind it, so he is going to be definitely one of the front runners.
Thomas Orr. This Age of Sigmar list looks solid and well-rounded. The Chaos Lord on Karkadrak and the Chaos Sorcerer Lord on Manticore are powerful leaders, and the Chaos Sorcerer Lord provides great support with the Master of Magic Command Tray and the Arcane Tome. The Chaos Chosen, Chaos Warriors, and Chaos Knights provide a sturdy and hard-hitting battalion, while the Mindstealer's Phalanx can be a useful utility unit. The Soul Scream Bridge and Soul Snare Shackles are also great for mobility and control. The list has good reinforcement options, and the artifacts and battalions add some useful bonuses. Overall, I would rate this list as a solid 8 out of 10.
Yeah, definitely, once again, another really strong list. The Chaos Lord on Karkadrak definitely gets work done. The 2 Sorcerer Lords, 1 on the Manticore, means he can get where he needs to be and cast what he needs to cast. And then the 15 Chosen are absolutely going to slap. It's almost a third of his list, but if they hit, they will absolutely wreck whatever he needs them to wreck. So, once again, another really powerful list.
Wesley Pollard. This seems like a well-rounded Skaven army list with a mix of powerful heroes and units. The Plague Priests and Vermin Lord Corruptor provide strong magical support, while the Deathmaster and Slynk Skittershank offer powerful melee and ranged capabilities, respectively. The army also has a good mix of battalion units, with Plague Monks, Plague Censer Bearers, and Night Runners providing some melee punch, and Scryer Acolytes and Gutter Runners adding some ranged firepower. The inclusion of the Skittershank's Clawpack Battalion also provides some extra mobility and strategic flexibility. Overall, I would rate this list as a solid 8 out of 10.
Yeah, Wes has gone something different to what the other Skaven lists and gone from a little bit of each. He's got some Eshin in there, he's got some Pestilent in there. He's going to be able to adapt to whatever he needs to be able to play the scenarios, and I think he's going to do quite well with that list.
Brendan Chamberlain. This is a very solid Age of Sigmar list with a strong focus on the Vampire Counts faction. The inclusion of multiple powerful Vampire Lords and the Prince Vordrei provides strong leadership and damage potential. The 2 units of Deadwalker Zombies and 1 unit of Death Rattle Skeletons serve as solid battalion options, providing cheap and expendable bodies to control objectives and absorb enemy attacks. The list could benefit from more reinforced units, as it currently only has 1 Battle Regiment battalion. Additionally, the lack of allies may limit the list's versatility in certain matchups. Overall, I would rate this list as 8 out of 10. It has strong synergy and a solid mix of unit types, but could benefit from some additional reinforcements and allies to round it out.
If there's one thing that Soulblade Gravelords don't need is additional reinforcements. With those zombies and those skeletons coming back when you kill them, Brennan is going to have plenty of bodies to be able to push people off the objectives, and he's going to have no problem pushing people off the objectives with his zombie dragons and Prince Vordry and other characters. Once again, a really good list, really good player. He's another top contender.
Chris Taylor. This is a strong Age of Sigmar list that appears to be focused on a vampire theme with some solid support from Rajulkar the Beast. The inclusion of 2 Terrorists is a powerful choice for the Behemoth slot, and the use of multiple Vampire Lords and Dire Wolves provide a versatile and flexible force. The combination of Universal Spell Law Flaming Weapon with Deathlance on the General's Zombie Dragon can be a devastating combo, and the use of the Hunter's Snare Command Tray and Sangsiren Artifact can help to bring down high-value targets. Overall, this list seems well-rounded and well-built. I would rate it as a 9 out of 10.
Another powerful Soulblight Gravelords list. That zombie dragon will absolutely murder whatever it needs to, especially when it's backed up by multiple Terrorgeists. And then Chris has got his wolves and skeletons and vampire lords on foot to spring around the board and deal with everything else that he needs to.
Codeem Key. This Age of Sigmar list appears to be very strong, with a good mix of powerful characters, units, and enhancements. The inclusion of Manfred von Karstein and Prince Vordry as Mortichs of Night and Vampire Lords on Zombie Dragons respectively gives the list a lot of offensive power, while the Dire Wolves and Death Rattle Skeletons provide solid battle-elan options. The choice of spells and artifacts also seem to be well thought out, with a mix of offensive and defensive options available. The use of the Battle Regiment and Warlord battalions provides additional benefits to the army, and the reinforced unit and aspect of the champion selections add additional flexibility and power to the list. Overall, I would rate this Age of Sigmar list very highly, potentially as a competitive level army.
It's good that it's being rated as a competitive level army because it's going to be a competitive level event, and this list is going to be one of the top contenders. It's a fantastic list. I really like it. Manfred is an amazing model, especially when he's backed up by multiple Vampire Lords. There's not as many bodies, but Soulblight bringing stuff back, you can kind of get away with it.
This Age of Sigmar list seems to be a night-out army with a focus on mobility and board control. It appears to have a good mix of heroes, battle-elan, and supporting units, as well as some endless spells to further enhance the army's abilities. The Guardian of Souls and Krulgast Cruciator provide strong magic support and the ability to heal and resurrect models, respectively. The 2 Spirit Torments also help in supporting the Bladeless Revenants, which are the army's main damage dealers. The Chain Rasps and Hex Wraiths provide some additional bodies and mobility, while the Chain Hasts can help in controlling enemy units. The list seems to be well-balanced and synergistic, with a good mix of offense and defense. Overall, I would rate this list as strong and competitive.
This list is rated as competitive, and I definitely rate Corey as a competitive player. 100% agree. It looks like it's got unparalleled mobility and board control, which is exactly how Corey is going to want to play this, and just rely on basically pure skill to outplay everyone that he comes up against.
Gary Housechild. This Age of Sigmar list seems strong and well-balanced. The inclusion of Belaimar Volga as the centerpiece of the army brings powerful spellcasting and an aura of increased bravery to the Deadwalker zombies, while Rajulkar the Beast offers some extra mobility and board control. The Vampire Lord on Zombie Dragon serves as a hard-hitting general, while the White King and Necromancer offer support with their respective spells and abilities. The army has a good mix of battle-elan troops, with 20 Grave Guard and 2 units of Death Rattle Skeletons offering solid infantry, and a unit of Blood Knights providing some extra punch. The Deadwalker zombies offer some much-needed bodies and chaff. The inclusion of Umbral Spell Portal adds some extra spellcasting versatility, and the Sangsiren and Arcane Tome artifacts give the army some extra survivability and spellcasting power. Overall, I would rate this list as strong and give it a score of 8 out of 10.
Yeah, definitely a strong list. Gary's one of my regular opponents, and he has been practicing with this and is getting better and better every time he puts it on the table. So I am genuinely scared for his opponents at the event.
Luke Payne. This Age of Sigmar list looks quite strong, with a heavy focus on night-out units and characters. The combination of Lady Alinda, the Knight of Shrouds, and Krulgast Cruciator provides a strong core of characters with a variety of support abilities and command trays. The Bladeless Revenants are a solid battle-elan choice, and having 4 units of them provides a lot of versatility and the ability to overwhelm the enemy. The Spirit Hosts and Hex Wraiths provide additional threats and can be used to flank or support the main force. The lack of reinforced units is a bit concerning, as it leaves the army vulnerable to attrition, but the high wound count and numerous units should make up for this to some extent. Overall, I would rate this Age of Sigmar list as a solid 8 out of 10.
Yep, another Nighthaunt list. It's going to be ridiculously mobile. It's going to be putting those Blade Ghasts and Hex Wraiths exactly where he needs them. Backed up by Curtis and Alinda. It's going to be it's going to be a grind. It's going to be a great game, and I'm very keen to see what Luke can do with it.
Nathan Gibbs. This Age of Sigmar list seems to be a solid flesh eater courts army with a mix of Ghoul infantry, crypt horrors, and crypt flayers for battalion units, backed up by some powerful leaders and monsters. The reinforcement options allow for some strategic flexibility on the battlefield. The addition of various artifacts and trays to the leaders enhances their abilities and makes them more effective in combat. Overall, I would rate this list 8 out of 10 for its good mix of units, effective reinforcement options, and strong leaders.
Yeah, definitely another powerful list. A Ghoul King on Terrorgeist is always something to be afraid of, and big units of flayers, massive unit of horrors, and then backed up by the Vargulf Courier, Crypt Infernal Courier, Arch Regent. He's going to have plenty of galley champs to be able to get those unique objectives.
Nicole Wyatt. This Age of Sigmar list seems like a solid choice for a Night-Hound army. It has a good mix of heroes and units with synergies that will help them function well on the battlefield. The inclusion of Lady Alinda as the general and the Mortgage of Grief will provide some strong magical support, while the Guardian of Souls and Spirit Torment will offer some much-needed healing and resurrection abilities. The choice of battalion units is also good, with the Chain Rasps being good for holding objectives, and the Grimghast Reapers and Dreadscythe Harridans dealing out significant damage. The army also has a good number of Spirit Hosts, which are tough and can deal out mortal wounds. Overall, this list seems like a good balance of offense and defense, and has some good synergy between the units. It also has some good options for taking and holding objectives. I would rate this list as 8 out of 10.
Nicole is a long-term Nighthaunt player, so you would expect any list that she brings to be something that has been honed to an absolute knife's edge. And reading through this, looks like exactly what she's bringing. Everything in there has its place, everything in there is useful, and everything in there gives her unparalleled flexibility that she's going to be able to bring to the tabletop.
Aaron Coleman. This is a very solid Age of Sigmar list. It has a good mix of leaders, battalion, and units. The Mega Boss on Maw Crusher is a great centerpiece model and provides a strong melee presence. The Swamp Kala Shaman and Vugog Prophets provide valuable spellcasting support. The Guttrippers and Auric Ardboys are excellent battalion choices, while the Auric Brutes provide additional melee punch. The inclusion of Auric Gorgruntas adds some mobility and can be useful for flanking maneuvers. The use of the Battle Regiment and Command Entourage battalions is a good choice, and the reinforced units are also well chosen. The artifacts and aspect of the champion choices are also strong. Overall, I would rate this list as a 9 out of 10. It has a good mix of units and leaders, and the use of battalions and artifacts is well thought out. The only potential weakness could be vulnerability to ranged attacks, as the army relies heavily on melee combat.
Yeah, his army does rely heavily on melee combat, but when it gets into melee combat, it is going to absolutely rock. Morboss and Mega Crusher is always something to be afraid of. Big unit of Orc Brutes, a massive unit of Gut Rippers, backed up by a Shaman, backed up by Prophets, backed up by a War Chanter. It's definitely going to be a solid list.
Ben Moore. This seems like a well-rounded and balanced Age of Sigmar list, with a variety of different units and abilities. The use of Truths and Squigs adds some unique flavor to the army. The Denghole Trogbos as the general, with the Alpha Trog command tray and Speaky Skull Fetish artifact, gives some nice buffs to the army, and the Madcap Shaman and Skraigrot also provide additional spellcasting support. The Moon Clan Shooters and Snarlfang Riders provide some ranged options, while the Rockgut and Fellwater Truths offer some heavy-hitting melee units. Overall, I would rate this list as strong and well-designed.
Yeah, very keen to see how it gets played on the table. I haven't seen them since their new book dropped, but looking at this list, it looks like it's got everything. It's got the Trog Boss, it's got the Troggots, it's got the Shooters, it's got the Snarlfang Riders, it's got tankiness, it's got damage, it's got speed, it's got magic. It's going to be really impressive to see what Ben can do with that on the table.
Brad Van Doren. This list appears to be heavily focused on Truths, with a total of 14 Truth models and 2 Denghole Trogboses. The inclusion of Skraigrot and the Fungo and Cave Shaman provide additional magical support, while the Webspinner Shaman adds some extra trickery to the army. The Gobapalooza and Marsh Crawler Sloggoth add some variety to the list. Overall, this list seems to have a good mix of melee and magical capabilities. However, with only 124 wounds and 4 drops, it may struggle in objective-based games against armies with more models and out of or more drops. The lack of ranged units may also be a disadvantage in certain situations. I would rate this list as solid, but with some potential weaknesses that could be exploited by certain opponents.
Only 124 wounds, most of them are Troggoths, most of them are going to be tanking it. It's still going to be a very hard list to get through, so very interested to see how Brad plays it on the table, but I can't wait to see what he can do with it.
Brady Aberton. This Age of Sigmar list looks quite strong, with a powerful mix of hard-hitting heroes and units. Having both Gordrak and the Mega Boss on Maw Crusher as leaders provides a strong command presence, with both able to dish out serious damage in combat. The Auric Wirnob Shaman provides some much-needed spellcasting, with the ability to deal damage and support the army with a great Big Green Hand of Gork spell. The battalion units, consisting of Auric Brutes and Gorgruntas, are solid choices, with the ability to deal damage and take hits. The inclusion of the Rogue Idol as a behemoth provides even more combat power, with the ability to dish out damage in a large area and even heal itself. Overall, this list looks like it could be a force to be reckoned with on the battlefield, with a good mix of speed, durability, and hitting power. I would rate it as a strong 8 out of 10.
Yeah, Brady's list is built to do one thing, and that's to go forward and smash, and that's what it's going to do. So make sure your screens are up, otherwise he's going to go straight through you.
Gavin Woodrow. This list seems to be quite solid and well-rounded. It has a good mix of melee and ranged units, as well as some powerful heroes. The inclusion of the Squig Herd and Grinkrag's Loon Court gives the armies some much-needed mobility and the ability to outmaneuver opponents. The use of the Moon Clan Stabber and shooters provide some decent shooting and objective holding power, while the Boingrot Bounded and Squig bows with Nashor Squig can dish out some serious damage in close combat. Skraigrot, the Loon King and the Fungo and Cave Shaman offers some great spellcasting potential, and their command trays and artifacts can further enhance the army's effectiveness. The inclusion of a Triumph is also a nice touch. Overall, I would rate this list as a solid 8 out of 10. It has a good mix of units, strong heroes, and good synergy between them.
Yep, very interested to see that Gav took the additional Triumph and taking Indomitable twice, so very much not wanting to have to waste command points to keep his units around, but definitely looking like he's going to be spending them elsewhere, and Gits have a lot of cool command traits with their new books, so it's going to be something that is going to be very powerful, so very interested to see how Gav plays it and how well he goes.
Jacob Richards. This is a stronger, more tribes list, with a focus on the Brawler Guts big name and the magnificent command entourage. Having 3 tyrants is quite unusual, but it could work as they all benefit from the Brawler Guts big name. Kragnos is a powerful centerpiece that can dish out a lot of damage, but he also takes up a significant portion of the army's points. The Gluttons and Iomuts provide some solid battleeling options, and the army has a good amount of melee presence. Overall, I would rate this list as 8 out of 10. It has a strong core and some interesting choices, but having 3 tyrants may be overkill and limit the army's flexibility. The lack of any ranged options or magic could also be a weakness.
Yeah, very interesting to see what Jacob's doing here. 3 Tyrants is definitely something that you don't really see, especially with Kragnos. It's a lot of points into characters and not much into bodies on the field, but all those bodies are ogres, so how many bodies do you actually need when you're that damn big?
Jeremy Ickel. This list seems to have a strong focus on Troggoths and Kragnos as the main force. The Denghold Trogbows as the general, with the Alpha Trog command tray and Glowy Halzid artifact, can help boost the Troggoth units. The inclusion of a single Denghold Troggoths unit can provide additional support. The list lacks diversity with only one type of unit and a low model count. It also has a low number of drops, which could make it vulnerable to being outmaneuvered on the battlefield. Overall, I would rate this list as average. It has some strengths but could benefit from additional units and more variety. It may struggle against armies with strong ranged attacks or high mobility. I would give this list a 6 out of 10.
Yeah, very interested to see how Jeremy goes on the weekend. Kragnos absolutely slaps, so he's a ridiculously powerful piece. But he's only got Troggoths, they are quite slow. It'll be interesting to see if he can get to where they need to be or if he just gets outmaneuvered.
Johan Grove. This list seems to be a well-rounded combination of different units and leaders. The inclusion of multiple heroes with different abilities provides versatility and potential for strong synergies. The Oig Warcanter's Master of Magic Command Tray and Arcane Tome artifact can be quite powerful in combination with the Law of the Weird spell, providing access to a variety of spells and potentially allowing the Oig Megaboss to cast spells as well. The combination of Brutes and Ard Boys provides a strong core of melee troops, while the Gorgruntas and Bold Boys add some ranged and mobility options. The inclusion of an Endless spell and the Ravenak's Gnashing Jaws can help control the battlefield and deal some additional damage. Overall, this list appears to have a lot of potential in both melee and ranged combat, with some solid spellcasting options as well. I would rate it around 8 out of 10.
Yeah, very keen to see how Johan goes. Like I said, he's got a lot of flexibility with that list. He's got the power of the Brutes and the staying power of the Ard Boys. And then he's got the 6 Bolt Boys as well, backed up by a Swampcaller Shaman. So they're going to be absolutely throwing out the damage. Very interested. Very interested.
Jordan Dervisor. This list seems to have a strong focus on Oig Gorgruntas and a powerful centerpiece model in the Megaboss on Maw Crusher. The list benefits from multiple Warcanters for the powerful Warbits and a Weird Knob Shaman for additional magic support. The lack of diversity in unit choices may make the army vulnerable to certain strategies or unit types that can exploit weaknesses in the Gorgruntas. However, the reinforced units and the general's fast UN mount trays should help with mobility and battlefield control. Overall, I would rate this list as a solid 8 out of 10 for its focused strategy and strong centerpiece model, but potential vulnerabilities to certain matchups.
Yeah, Jordan's list is designed to go forward and smash, and that's what it looks like it's going to do. Those Gorgrunters are going to be fast, backed up by that Mega Bros, backed up by the War Tanters as well. They're going to get where they need to go, and they're going to hit like an absolute truck.
Liam O'Donoghue. This is a very strong list with a powerful leader in Gordrak the Fist of Gork. The Mega Boss on Maw Crusher is also a solid leader choice with good trays and an artifact. The two Auric Warhunters bring valuable warbits, and the aspect of the champion tray can make the Gorgruntas even more deadly. The two units of Gorgruntas are formidable, and the reinforced Ard Boys can hold objectives. The army has a low drop count, giving it a potential first turn advantage. Overall, I would rate this list very highly for its strength in combat and leadership choices.
Yep, having two big, powerful characters in the Mega Boss and Maw Crusher and Gordrak, there's going to be a lot of damage coming out of them. They are quite hard to deal with, so that I think is going to be a big part about how people can go against Liam.
Nate Torrent. This list seems to have a clear focus on ranged firepower, with a grand battery and multiple ion blasters, which can be a good strategy in Age of Sigmar. However, the list lacks some mobility options, with only the Frostlord on Stonehorn as a fast-moving unit. The Tyrant with Death Gear can be a resilient leader, and the Bloodbelt Hunter with Deadly Aim is a good choice for a general, providing some additional ranged damage. The Butcher with Tenderizer and Gruesome Trophy Rack is a good support unit for the Leadbelgers, which are solid ranged infantry choices. Overall, the list seems solid, but it may struggle against armies with a lot of fast-moving units or those that can close the gap quickly. I would rate this list 7 out of 10.
Yep, Nate has gone for guns, and he's gone for big guns, and lots of them. So multiple iron blasters, multiple units of lead belchers, plus the blood pelt hunter. It's going to throw out a lot of damage from range, and then even when you get up close, they are all ogres. You've still got to deal with them in combat. So very, very keen to see what he puts down on the table.
Nicholas Thoronder. This list looks strong and well-rounded. The combination of the two Auric Warhunters with warbit abilities provides some great buffs for the rest of the army, while the Mega Boss on Maw Crushers serves as a strong leader with multiple useful abilities. The choice of units is also good, with a mix of Auric Brutes, Auric Gorgruntas, and Fell Water Truths providing different types of damage and resilience on the battlefield. The use of Reinforced on some units adds even more toughness to the list. Overall, I would rate this list as a solid 8 out of 10. It has a good mix of units and strong leadership, and should be able to hold its own in most battles.
Yeah, very keen to see how Nick goes on the weekend. He's got a lot of flexibility in that list. He's got a decent amount of options when it comes to being able to play, so very keen to see what he can do.
Nick Chase. This list seems to be focused on a strong elite force of Mega Gargants, backed up by a few Man-Crusher Gargants as Battle-Elan. The Gatebreaker Mega Gargant as the general, with the monstrously tough command tray and the Amulet of Destiny artifact, makes for a very resilient leader. The Warstomper Mega Gargant with the Arcane Tome and the Flaming Weapon spell gives some spellcasting ability and a bit of extra damage. However, with only 3 Man-Crusher Gargants, the army may struggle with objectives and board control, as they don't have a lot of models to hold positions or contest objectives. Additionally, the lack of reinforced units means that the army will struggle with some battle plans, as they won't be able to field the required number of units. Overall, I would rate this list a 6.5 out of 10. While it has some strong units and characters, the lack of bodies and flexibility could be problematic in some scenarios.
Yeah, it does have a lack of bodies, but 3 of those bodies are Mega Gargants. And Mega Gargants are the epitome of the damage check. You need to be able to deal with them before they lock you down and stomp you into the ground.
NIC Right. This list seems to have a strong focus on the Gloomspite factions Squig and Moonclan units, with some Spider Riders and a Sloggoth thrown in for good measure. The combination of the Gittish Horde, Jaws of Mork Allegiance ability, and the Take What's Theirs grand strategy could lead to some aggressive and successful play. Grincrack the Great and the Scuttlebuss on Gigantic Spider provide some hard-hitting leadership, with the former's super nasty Venom command tray and the latter's Headdress of Many Eyes artifact giving them some additional bite. The Webspinner Shaman and Scragrot, the Loon King provide support with their spells and abilities. The army's Battle-Elan units are made up of Moonclan Stavar and Spider Riders, both of which have solid numbers and decent abilities. The Squig herds are the army's main damage dealers, with 72 Squigs total and the option to reinforce them twice. The Gobbapalooza and Sneaky Snufflers provide some additional support and tricks, while the Marsh Crawler Sloggoth adds some big beastly presence. Overall, this seems like a fun and flavorful army to play with, though it may struggle against armies with more elite units or heavy ranged capabilities. I would give this list a solid 8 out of 10.
Yeah, very keen to see what Nick does with this. He's got an absolute ton of squigs there, so they're going to absolutely just flood the board and do bulk damage in the process.
Sam McGunn. This list looks fairly balanced and competitive, with a good mix of leaders, Battle-Elan, and artillery. The Slaughtermaster provides some solid spellcasting support, while the Frostlords on Stonehorn are both strong combat units that can dish out a lot of damage. The Mournfang Pack provides some solid Battle-Elan units, and the Ion Blasters add some ranged firepower to the list. Overall, I would rate this list as a strong 8 out of 10. It has good synergy between its units, and it covers most of the bases you would want in a competitive army. However, it could potentially be improved with some additional support units or more specialized choices.
Yeah, very interested to see how Sam goes. He's got 2 Frosthorns, he's got 6 Mournfang, he's got 2 Iron Blasters. They're going to throw out a ridiculous amount of damage, and they're all very tanky. But is he going to have the flexibility and the mobility to be able to pull it out?
Andy Mulholland. This list seems to be a strong combination of melee power and durability. It has a variety of buffs and abilities to enhance its combat abilities, and the inclusion of Gartrek Gurnison as an ally adds a potent melee combatant. The Hearthguard Berserkers and Vakite Berserkers make for a solid battalion, and the Molten Infernoth and Runic Fury Wall provide additional offensive and defensive capabilities. Overall, I would rate this list as a strong 8 out of 10.
Yeah, we're into order now, and Fire Slayers, with that spread of heroes, all of them being galley champs, or all of them apart from Gotrek, Andy's going to have a very strong game to be able to score the extra points and have access to the extra battle tactics that he can now do. So, very keen to see how he plays.
Ben Mitchell. This is a very strong list with a good mix of units and powerful leaders. The use of the GRYPH Feather Charm on the Lord Relictor is a smart choice to increase the survivability of your army. The Knight Vexilla with the Banner of Apotheosis can also be a game changer in the right situation. The inclusion of the Judicators with Skybolt Bows and Vinditors provides good ranged and melee support respectively, and the Annihilators and Priters can dish out a lot of damage in combat. The Evocators on Celestial Draglines add even more mobility and versatility to the army. Overall, this list has a lot of potential and can be very effective on the tabletop. I would rate it a 9 out of 10.
Yep, very keen to see Ben play. Stormcaster are always powerful. They're always popular. He's got some of the more popular options, and he's also got some of the more niche options. So, very interested to see how they go on the weekend.
Chris Welfare. This list appears to be a very focused Caradron Overlord's army with a heavy emphasis on Enrine Riggers and Arcanaut Fruits. The list has a good mix of leaders, including Brogue Grungson as the Lord Magnate of Baraknar, an Etheric Navigator, a Codewright, and 3 Enrin Masters with Enrin Harness. The inclusion of Blazebeard and Sunstrak Hobbler Magbolas as an artifact for one of the Enrin Masters is also a nice touch. The army's battalion is entirely made up of Enrine Riggers, which is a strong choice given their ability to deal damage and their mobility. The 2 Arcanaut frigates are solid Behemoth's choices and are both equipped with heavy skyhooks, making them great at dealing ranged damage. Overall, this army appears to be very strong and well-rounded. It has a good mix of mobility, ranged and melee options, and the Enrine Riggers and Arcanaut frigates make for a very formidable force. The only potential downside is the high number of drops, which could make it challenging to deploy and move around the battlefield effectively. I would rate this list as an 8 out of 10.
Yeah, I can't wait to see how KO play on the table, and I know Chris is very excited to get these guys back out.
Damien Locke. This is a powerful list with a lot of utility and strong units. The combination of Archmage Teclis and Selenair, Spirit of HYSH, is very formidable and will provide a lot of spellcasting power. The Sinrai Cathela as a general with the speed of HYSH Command Tray and Levitate spell from the Universal Spell Law will make for a highly mobile army, which can also benefit from the aspect of the champion, Tunnel Master ability from the Sinrai Lawseeker. The battalion consists of a solid mix of units, with Vannery Orlan Sentinels being a strong ranged unit, and Huracan Wind Chargers being a fast cavalry unit. The Rune of Petrification and Umbral Spell Portal provide additional magical firepower and control. The reinforced units make the army more durable and can take objectives more easily. Overall, this list is highly competitive and should perform well in most scenarios. I would rate it 9 out of 10.
A very strong list. Teclis is still the absolute spellcasting powerhouse that he's always been, and then backing up the Lawseeker as a Galatian champion is going to be very useful, especially with the Tunnel Master. He's got an absolute stack of Sentinels to build his firebase around, and then he's got the Wind Chargers and the Cathal are in there for a bit of speed. It's going to be a strong list, and I'm very keen to see it.
Glenn Taylor. This list seems to be a Stoyacast Eternals army list. It has a good mix of different units, including leaders, battalion, and units. The Lord Castellan and Lord Relictor are both great support heroes for the army. The Karazai, the Scarred, is a powerful leader with a high point cost, but could potentially deal a lot of damage on the battlefield. The 3 units of Vanguard Bladors seem like a strong choice for fast-moving and hard-hitting cavalry. The 3 Stormstrike Chariots could also be useful for adding some heavy-hitting potential to the army. Overall, this list seems like a good mix of units, but it may lack some diversity and redundancy, as there are only a few different types of units included. The addition of some ranged units or more battalion could help improve the army's flexibility. I would rate this list a solid 7 out of 10.
Yeah, very interested to see how Glenn plays this on the table. Karazai's a massive, massive model. He's going to get a lot of work done, and then those Paladors and the Chariots are going to be ridiculously mobile. So he's definitely going to have board control, but I don't know if he's going to have the damage to be able to bust through some of these tankier lists that we've seen.
James Fuller. This list seems well balanced and versatile, with a strong emphasis on mobility and ranged capabilities. The inclusion of Archmage Teclis and Selenaire, Spirit of HYSH, as a powerful centerpiece unit is a great choice, and the Huracan Windmage as the general, with Grand Windrider as the command tray provides excellent mobility options. The artillery provided by the Vannery Star Shard ballistas can provide additional ranged support. The inclusion of the Purple Sun of Shyish Endless spell can be especially effective at weakening enemy units. Overall, this is a strong list with a good mix of units and abilities, and I would rate it as a solid 8 out of 10.
Yeah, James is a good player. This is a very solid list. It's very scary to come up against. So he is going to be scaring a lot of people, and we'll see how he performs.
Jared Wilson. This list appears to be quite strong and well-rounded. The centerpiece of the army is Laurel the Everkeen, who is a powerful hero that can deal a lot of damage and support nearby units. The Brandwitch and Archrevenant are also solid choices for supporting the army. The Kernoth Hunters with Kernoth Greatbows are a strong ranged option that can deal a lot of damage from a distance, and the Tree Revenants and Gossamed Archers provide additional support. The Smite Swarm Hive is a cheap and useful option for providing some additional summoning potential. Overall, this list looks like it has a good mix of heroes, units, and support options, and the reinforced Kernoth Hunters add some additional durability. I would rate this list as a solid 8 out of 10.
Yeah, I've started playing Sylvaneth now, so looking at Jared's list, I can see he's got a lot of play there. Alariel is still a fantastic model, and then those 6 Kernoth Hunters with the Great Bows are going to be throwing out a lot of damage from a big distance, combined with the mobility of the Tree Revs and Gossamed Archers and just the general Sylvaneth mobility. This is a really, really powerful list, and I'm keen to see what Jared can do with it.
Jason Harris. This list appears to be a well-rounded and effective army for a Fira Slayers player. It has a good mix of melee and ranged units, with strong leadership and support abilities from the various heroes. The use of Hearthguard Berserkers in multiple units with different weapon loadouts provides flexibility and resilience on the battlefield. The inclusion of endless spells and invocations also adds additional tactical options for the army. Overall, I would rate this list as a solid 8 out of 10.
Yep, Jason is a long-time Fire Slayers player, and you can see his experience in the list there. He's going to have a lot of flexibility with those units of Hearthguard Berserkers, but they are not going to be moved off objectives. So he's going to be able to control the game, set the tempo, and make everyone play his game.
Jason McPherson. This list seems to be heavily focused on the Auric Runefather and Auric Runesmitters, with 3 Magmetroths included. The 2 Auric Runesmitters also provide a good amount of support through their prayers. The Battlesmith provides further support, and the Auric Runeson adds some close combat potential. The Hearthguard Berserkers are the only Battleelan option, but they are quite tough and can dish out a lot of damage with their pearly axes. Reinforcing them is a good idea to ensure their durability. The list lacks any ranged units, which could be a potential weakness. Additionally, the lack of any allies means that there is no room for any additional unit types. Overall, this list seems solid and has a good mix of tough units and support characters. I would rate it as a 7 out of 10.
Yep, once again we see Fire Slayers there. They've got multiple heroes on foot. They've got multiple big tanky units. This list has 3 Magnetroths. They are just going to reach out and remove whatever Jason needs removed, and it's going to be very powerful on the table.
Keegan Watson. This list seems well-rounded and has a good mix of units. The Lord Celestant on Stardrake is a powerful centerpiece, and the Celestant Prime and Gardas Steel Soul provide additional hard-hitting options. The Battleelan units are also solid choices, with a good mix of durability and offensive potential. The inclusion of the Lord Relictor and his Translocation Prayer can also provide some mobility and tactical options. Overall, I would rate this list as strong and competitive. Rating 9 out of 10.
Yeah, Keegan's Stormcast list is going to be very impressive on the table. Celestant Prime and the Stardrake are both going to absolutely slap. And then having that mix of battle line units as well. 2 of them are reinforced. They're big units of tanky Stormcast models. So they're not going anywhere fast, and they're going to dish out a lot of damage.
Matthew Dale. This Stormcast Eternals list is focused on the Hammers of Sigmar Stormhost and the Stormdrake Guard. The Knight Draconis leads the army and is armed with a Mirror Shield artifact, providing additional protection for the unit. The army includes 4 units of Stormdrake Guard, each reinforced once, for a total of 10 models. Overall, this is a strong and focused list with a good balance of offensive and defensive capabilities. The Stormdrake Guard are a formidable unit, especially when reinforced, and the Knight Draconis provides strong leadership and an additional layer of defense. The Mirror Shield artifact also helps protect the army from enemy spells and abilities. The only potential weakness of the list is its lack of ranged attacks, but the army's mobility and melee prowess should make up for that. I would rate this list as a solid 8 out of 10.
Doesn't really sound like the AI has ever actually played against Stormdrake Guard, but I've played Matt with this list and he pilots it exceptionally well. So this is definitely going to be one of the top contenders at Contest of Fools.
Mad Gammy. This is a strong list with some powerful units and leaders. Alaril the Everkeen is a very strong choice for a leader, and the Archrevenant and Battlemage also provide useful abilities. The Kernoth Hunters with Kernoth Scythes are a powerful unit, and the Tree Revenants can be useful for mobility and capturing objectives. The inclusion of the Gossamed Archers can provide some ranged firepower. The list is well optimized with a Battle Regiment battalion and a single reinforced unit. The only weakness might be the low model count, but overall, I would rate this list as a 9 out of 10.
I know Gammy's been putting in a lot of work into his Sylvaneth, and I'm very interested to see how he plays this on the weekend. It is a ridiculously small list, but he's got a lot of power jammed in that.
Nathan Mayer. This list looks solid, with a good mix of hard-hitting units and support heroes. The Lord Celestant on Stardrake makes for a strong general, and the Celestial Menagerie and Drake-scale armor make him even more formidable. Gardas Steel Soul and the Knight Incantor provide additional support and spellcasting abilities, while the Lord Castellant offers excellent protection for nearby units with his Lantern of Abjuration ability. The Vinditors and Vanquishers make for strong Battleelan units, with the Vinditors being particularly durable and the Vanquishers having solid ranged attacks. The Protectors offer good melee support and can benefit from the reinforcement ability to become even more powerful. The Vanguard Raptors with long-strike crossbows provide additional ranged firepower. The Warlord and Galician Command battalions are useful for gaining additional command points, while the Redemption Brotherhood provides a bonus for sticking with a specific Battleelan unit. The Thunderbolt Volley Holy Command can be devastating when used at the right time. Overall, I would rate this list as a strong 8 out of 10.
Yeah, Nathan's got a lot of options in this. He's got big tanky units, he's got some decent ranged options, he's got a lot of punch in his heroes, so I'm very keen to see what he can do.
Nick Cambridge. This list seems to be a solid Sylvanth army build. The use of the Battle Regiment and Command Entourage, magnificent battalions provide some useful bonuses to the army, while the inclusion of the Chronomantic Cogs and Smite Swarm Hive Endless spells allows for some extra flexibility on the battlefield. Having the Tree Lord Ancient as the general is a good choice, as their ability to cast regrowth can be very helpful in keeping units alive. The Warsong Revenant as the secondary leader is also a good choice, especially with the Spellsinger Command Tray and Arcane Tome artifact, which will provide some extra magical abilities to the army. The use of Tree Revenants, Dryads, and Tree Lords as Battleelan units provides some good options for objective holding and melee combat. The Archrevenant Stubborn as a Rhinox ability can make them particularly durable in combat. Overall, this list looks well balanced and should be able to perform well in a variety of game situations. The only potential weakness might be in dealing with heavily armored opponents, as there are not many options for dealing with high armor saves.
He's got one of the best options for dealing with high armor saves, and that is a Spirit of Durthu with Grimwood Gladius. So I don't think Nick is going to be stressing about that much. But his list looks really powerful, and I'm really keen to see what he can do with it.
Patrick Carter. This is a Caradron Overlord's army list with a unique twist, including a dirigible suit-wearing Endrin Master and a Codewright as leaders. The army is focused on ranged combat, with a heavy emphasis on Grundstock Gun Haulers and Grundstock Thunderers. The Arcanaut Ironclad serves as the army's main behemoth, armed with a great volley cannon and the last word Endrin work. The list looks well-rounded and could be competitive, especially in objective-based games where the Gun Haulers and Ironclad can quickly capture objectives. However, the lack of any melee-focused units could be a disadvantage in certain situations. Overall, I would rate this list a 7 out of 10 for its uniqueness and potential effectiveness.
Yeah, very keen to see what Pat can do. He is an exceptional KO player, so I'm very interested and very keen to see what he can do with this new book.
Taylor Bevan. This army seems to be a highly mobile and elite force focused on fast-moving units. The Lord Castellant and Knight Draconis provide strong leadership and buffing abilities to nearby units, while the Stormdrake Guard are the backbone of the force, able to deal significant damage in melee combat. The reinforced Stormdrake Guard unit will be especially tough to take down with their increased durability. The army lacks ranged units, so positioning and movement will be crucial to ensure that it can get into melee range and deal damage efficiently.
AI obviously hasn't played against Stormdrake Guard because their ranged attack is absolutely devastating, and I'm sure Taylor is planning on leveraging that to the fullest extent. So I'm very keen to see what they can do with that list.
Tim Bauman. This seems to be a very solid list for a Fira Slayer's army. It appears to be well balanced between heroes, Battleelan units, and some behemoth options. The Auric Runefather on Magmadroth is an excellent general choice for this army, with his high mobility, powerful attacks, and strong command ability. The Auric Runesmitters provide some much-needed ranged support and additional prayer options. The Hearthguard Berserkers are a potent and durable battalion unit, especially when reinforced, and the Vakite Berserkers provide some additional melee punch. The Doomseeker is an interesting choice, as he provides some additional mobility and can deal some significant damage. The Molten Infernoth and Runic Firewall are good choices for endless spells, as they can provide some additional damage output and help control the battlefield. Overall, this list seems to have a good mix of different unit types and options, and should be able to handle a variety of opponents.
Very, very keen to see what Tim can do with his Fire Slayers at this. He's got a lot of heroes that will count as the Galley Champs, so he will definitely be a threat scoring and looking for those particular battle tactics that some people might not be able to get.
Timothy McDivitt. This list looks like a solid Caradron Overlord's army with a good mix of shooting and mobility. The inclusion of Broke Grungson as the Lord Magnate of Barrett now provides a lot of useful abilities for your army, such as the ability to reroll failed hit rolls for Sky Vessels. The Enrine Riggers with grapple launchers and gun butts can provide some close combat support and mobility for your army, while the Arcanaut frigates and gun hauler can provide strong shooting. The Arcanaut company can provide some additional shooting, while the Knight Incantor can add some magic support. Overall, this list seems well balanced and has a good mix of shooting and close combat capabilities. The command tray and artifact choices seem solid and should help your army on the battlefield. I would rate this list a solid 8 out of 10.
Yep, Tim is another long-time KO player. He is a very good player as well, so I am very keen to see what he can do with this new book and to see what he's come up with. So he's got a couple of boats, a couple of dudes, a couple of heroes. Very, very interesting list. Very interesting play style.
Zach Leyer. The Shadow Queen and Morath Icane are both powerful leaders with high damage output and great survivability, making them excellent choices to lead your army. The Bloodrak Medusa is an excellent choice as a general, especially with the Zealous Orator command tray and the Crown of Woe artifact, both of which enhance her leadership abilities. The Blood Sisters and Blood Stalkers are both excellent battalion choices for Daughters of Cain armies, offering high damage output and good survivability. The Heinrei Heartrenders are fast-moving units that can harass and snipe enemy units from a distance, making them a great addition to the army. Overall, this list appears to be well-rounded and has good synergy between its units.
Yep, Daughters of Cain are always a strong contender. Shadow Cain and Morathi Cain absolutely slap. Are an absolute pain to deal with, especially when they're backed up by big units of Blood Sisters and Blood Stalkers, and then the Heartrenders in there as well to really just kind of leverage that mobility.
Zach Douglas. The Arcanaut Admiral as the General with the Cunning Fleet Master command tray and Celestium Burst Grenade artifact and leadership of the Alpha aspect of the champion enhances the army's speed and mobility. The Ether Chemist with the Spell in a Bottle artifact can be useful to enhance the army's shooting, especially the Grundstock Thunderers. The Enrine Master with Enrine Harness and Codrite provide some support to the army's war machines and Enrine Riggers. The Knight Incantor adds some magical capabilities to the army. The Arcanaut Company is a solid battalion choice with a mix of different weapons, but it may struggle against heavily armored units. The Enrine Riggers can be a mobile unit to support the Ironclad, but it may be fragile. The Grundstock Thunderers provide a good ranged support and can be reinforced with an additional unit. The Arcanaut Ironclad is a solid behemoth with a good mix of weapons, and the Great Enrine Works Zombaricor Dealbreaker Battle Ram makes it more effective in close combat. Overall, this list seems to have a good mix of units and capabilities, but it may be lacking some resilience and defense against strong melee attacks.
Once again, very keen to see what Zach can do with his KO. He's got a very, very varied list, so I'm very interested to see it on the table. So that is all the lists that we've got at the moment for Contest of Fools. We're very excited. We're very pumped. We can't wait to see everyone there. We hope it's going to be an excellent tournament. So if you've got any questions, please message us on Facebook or send an email to info@polymathtabletop.com.au. Until next time, bye.